Tom actually goes over to Schwartz's house and he starts breaking down crying. And Schwartz in this moment is kind of like, dude, yeah, you fucked up. And I see that you're really upset. Like, I'm not going to sit here and just kick you while you're down. What about our business that we just dumped all of our life savings into? Because that business went from 4 point whatever stars on Yelp to 1 star. Those reviews went from like 300 great reviews to 10,001 saying, I walked into Schwartz and Sandy's and I saw a roach and her name was Raquel. You know what I mean? Like, people were just slamming the hell out of the business, which I think is so unfair to the people who work at the business. But I even knew this when I worked at TomTom. I knew this when I worked at Sir. If there were moments on the show where it wasn't in favor of the Toms, or something happened with Lisa on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and people weren't happy, it affected our business. Like, we knew as a staff that when it was good, it was really good. And when it wasn't, it was kind of shit. It's just like, we were aware. The high highs and the low lows.
They should have bought a Subway franchise. I mean, this is the problem. They're monetizing their names, so their brand is attached to their business. When the brand goes sour, the business goes sour. Yeah, I agree. I think leaving a bad Yelp review is such bad faith. Like, it's such bad faith for the system. But what's so funny is they probably spent a month or two scrubbing those bad Yelp reviews, because you can dispute them. You can dispute like a review that is from someone who didn't go to the actual restaurant. But then last night I go and open my Yelp and there's just another 36 1-star reviews from last night. So people reopening the wound. It's interesting because Schwartz can't be a good friend here and console Sandoval, because he's a business partner here and he's got his whole life. So he's got his own issues to deal with, which everyone basically, we're all the hero of our own story. We're all the star. So other people are like, look, who cares? The bigger deal is Ariana and how she feels. And it's like, well, respectfully for Schwartz, this is the biggest deal for him. He probably, he deserves some level of guilt and backlash for being associated with it, but we still don't know how deep it goes. A lot of people will kind of side on the sort of pessimistic angle where, oh, he must have been a part of it all along. I don't know. I mean, a guy like Sandoval probably could disassociate his friendships from his behind the scenes things. But then again, Ariana says that she was able to track his device back to Schwartz's place. So was Schwartz providing a safe haven for Raquel and Sandoval to be, sleeping around? And was he a part of this whole like false narrative that he was going to try to hook up with Raquel to provide cover? We don't have answers to all of this, but it's juicy.
I still feel like, I don't think that he knew he was a pawn, but I think that he became sort of like a wingman. I think that he was a safe haven for them to continue to hook up. I think that Schwartz has a big heart. And I feel like he was probably encouraging Tom, like, man, don't do this to Ariana. Like, I know that you have to get your ducks in a row, man, but you've got to tell her the longer you wait, the worse this is going to get. I do feel like he did probably have a moral compass in that regard, even though that sounds like a lot coming out of this situation, because he cheated on his wife, Katie, multiple times. But I think looking at this, he kept encouraging Tom, and I think Tom kept feeding him the same narrative that he's trying to feed the viewers, which is, man, I've tried having the conversation with Ariana, and every time I do, she threatens to hurt herself. Because even when he said that to Sheena, and we'll get to that conversation, Sheena had a great kind of comeback to it. But when he said it to Ariana, he never said, well, when we tried having the conversation, you said you were going to hurt yourself. Like, he didn't use those same words. And those are pretty aggressive words if they're not true, to kind of make yourself look better. And the reason I wonder if they are true to begin with is last night, Ariana said on Watch What Happens Live, he never mentioned us splitting up, not once, never.
Yeah, it's so interesting because there's such different levels of guilt here, right? So if Sandoval's a 10 out of 10 on the guilt level, Schwartz might be a 4 out of 10. But a lot of times what we do is we'll clump it all together. So like if I were to defend Sandoval, kind of like Howie Mandel gave a bad interview, everyone gets mad at him with the same scorn, in the same anger that they, like it's like we're all displaced here. We're like, whose side are you on? I tend to obviously side with Ariana here, but it would be interesting if we could know, and we probably never will, what those conversations looked like. I doubt that Sandoval it was as confident with, like, I'm sure in his brain he was trying to break up, but clearly it didn't happen. And as Sheena said, she laid it out. You talk, you get friends involved. Like, there's a whole process, which I've actually never thought of. I've never really broken up with somebody before. And this sounds like a situation where Sandoval's probably a people pleaser, and he was probably worried about his own image and all these other things. And a lot of times what happens with people pleasers is you kick the can down the road, and whatever conversation you need to have gets a lot worse because you don't have it in the time you should have.
Right. So you're just beating around the bush until there's no more bush to beat around, and then you have nothing to hide behind.
Yeah. And that's where he's at. And I'll tell you this, I'm guilty of being a huge sucker. I see him cry, I believe it. I don't necessarily, I just do. And I'm ripe to being scammed, because the same thing happens on the Bachelor franchise. I watch people's reactions and I just feel bad for them. I obviously feel bad for Ariana, but I feel bad for Sandoval. I don't know if his tears are because he's lost his brand image or because he's sad about Ariana. I don't know what his tears are, but I don't think he's making up how he feels. I think he's like hysterical. It's all his own doing. So no one feels bad.
I feel like he's hysterical because he's watching his image completely deteriorate. And the only reason I say that is because when I worked at TomTom, there were a few scenes where he got really passionate at the bar, where him and Schwartz would have to get into an argument, or him and Jax Taylor would get into an argument. And then production would be like, hey, sorry, somebody just walked into the shot. We're going to need you to redo this. And then he would walk out and come back in, and he would sit out there. And I remember he would smoke a cigarette outside, and he would just like kind of push his hair back and be like, dude, I just got to go in and film this scene. And then he would like piece himself together and walk back in and be like, that's really fucked up, Jax, and start crying. And I'm like, what the hell is this? So I've seen the acting version of him last night. It did not seem great, but I think that's exactly, he knows how to turn it on for the camera. And like you said, I think where he lost viewers a little bit was you were not only trying to turn it on to to save your image a little bit, but you were also not being so remorseful because you were trying so hard to save your image. You were like, but I tried, but this could have been this way, but we weren't having sex. There was no real connection. And the answers were just kind of garbage. Like when he was talking to Schwartz and he said, you know, I tried to tell her a couple times about me and Raquel, but she just gave off the vibe like she didn't want to know. I'm like, what? That she gave you? Okay, so hold on. Can you please explain what the vibe is for your partner? Like what the vibe is that they give off when they don't want to know or have the conversation on like a casual Tuesday that you are sleeping with their best friend? I don't know what that vibe looks like.